Welcome to Odyssey. Odyssey is a show where we discuss the frontier of crypto's opportunities and challenges in driving real-world impact in the societies of tomorrow. Odyssey is produced thanks to the support of Safe and Ambire Wallet. Safe is the most trusted decentralized custody protocol and collective asset management platform on Ethereum and the EVM. Ambire Wallet is an advanced smart wallet that utilizes account abstraction, acting as a gateway to Web3 applications and providing users with secure and effortless management of their digital assets. You'll hear more about them later on in the show. Let's get to it, friends. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Odyssey. On this podcast, we have Marek, the co-founder of Celo and Valora, the CTO of Celo, and the president of Valora currently. So for those of you that aren't aware, Celo and its wider ecosystem is really centered around enabling regenerative, prosperous futures for all, particularly those who are in disenfranchised positions. Validating its first block on Earth Day of 2020, Celo has already done tremendous things, including enabling UBI for folks around the world, unlocking global payments infrastructure, bringing local stablecoins to people around the world, and all while being the first carbon negative blockchain within the ecosystem. I was really excited to speak with Marek, how he came to crypto, his founder journey navigating the ecosystem, and how he and his co-founder Rene decided to embark on this journey. We also discussed and explore the future of Celo and Valora and some key intervention points that we see in the crypto ecosystem that Celo is particularly well poised to address and tackle. So it was a really great conversation, and I hope you enjoy. Today, I'm joined by Marek from Celo and Valora. Marek, it's great to have you here on the podcast.
Thanks, Marcus. It's really wonderful to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So, Marek, give us the kind of quick rundown into kind of who you are and what you're working on as well, and we'll dive into things further on, but just give the audience a little bit of a situation with regards to what you're up to in the space.
Sure, absolutely. So I'm a CTO of a company called C Labs. You can think of C Labs as where a lot of the public goods development in the Celo ecosystem happens. And then I'm also president of Valora, which is a really easy to use mobile wallet in the Celo ecosystem. And, by virtue of, co-founding both of these companies, people sometimes refer to me as a co-founder of Celo.
Cool. Well, excited to dive into everything you're up to and the work that you're doing. I'm a big fan of the Celo ecosystem and everything you've built to date. But before we dive into that, give us the kind of personal background into Marek and who you are, how you ended up kind of jumping down the crypto rabbit hole as well.
Sure, yeah. So, I have a Polish background. My parents are Polish, but I was born and raised in Singapore. So I grew up there. And, throughout college, I studied computer science. I have a technical background. I first studied at the University of Toronto, computer engineering, and then went to MIT for my PhD, where I was doing research on something called deterministic multi-threading. Which just, through serendipitously is very relevant to scaling blockchains today. And out of MIT, this was around 10 years ago now, I started my first company. It was a machine learning company that did well. It was venture backed and it got acquired a few years later. And then after that experience, around 5 years ago now, I teamed up with one of my co-founders from that first company, Rene Reinsberg, and then also an MIT professor, Sep Kambar. And the three of us started thinking about what we wanted to do next. And ultimately, one thing led to another, and that's how we started Celo.
Awesome. So as you're ideating sort of post-exit and thinking about where you want to put your energy forth, like what was the thread that you pulled on when you said, Celo needs to come into existence?
Yeah, so we wanted to really take our time. And so with the first company, we were students. Rene was just graduating from his MBA, so he had student debt to pay back. And, I was taking this big leap of faith on a startup. We really wanted to go out there and raise money and get going. And so we ended up kind of falling in love with our first idea that we had, which, ultimately in hindsight was a great idea because the company did well, it got acquired. But it wasn't we weren't as methodical around that idea as we, in hindsight, wanted to be. And so the second time around, we wanted to be a lot more deliberate. And we ended up taking half a year actually to ideate and to come up with a company. And we wanted to start really broad. I think when you're starting a company, it's really easy to fall in love with your first idea. And so to try to fight that, challenge ourselves to come up with 100 different ideas. And since this wasn't the first company that we were starting, we wanted the company to be big and mission driven. We wanted to create something that we could effectively devote the rest of our careers to. And we had lots of different ideas. One's around telemedicine. It was even a drone idea, which surprisingly no one's actually done yet. The incarnation of what we were thinking of doing, and then Celo. And so we were particularly excited about both the opportunity that self-custody presented towards helping fight helping advance, I should say, financial inclusion. And then we were equally excited about the programmability of blockchains and ultimately of money and the really exciting new innovation that could come out of that. And so the more that we looked into things, the more we realized that, Celo was the best company of that list. And I was really proud of that list. So I think that says a lot.
I'm sure there's some gems in that list as well, and some really exciting. Given everything that's emerged out of Celo, I'm sure there were some just like gems in there, and would love to see what else materializes as things continue to unfold. And I love this idea that you really sort of had this moment of thought and pause. And I think as entrepreneurs, oftentimes it can be very enticing to just follow this very quick sort of short-term benefit to yourself. And it's like, yes, this is what I want to go down this. And to take that pause and say, we're going to take 6 months to really think about this deeply. And what do we want to commit our lives to? I think is such an important sort of step along your founder journey, and is reflected now in what is ultimately come to be Celo. So as you're ideating and going through, these 100 ideas or so, what was it that you felt that what you noticed with self-custody with regards to driving economic freedom and the programmability of blockchains, like what was the problem? I'm sure you thought deeply about the problem, but situate that problem there for us where you said, yes, there is a solution to this very specific and acute problem.
Yes. And so, as I'm sure many of your listeners know, you don't need a government recognized ID to self-custody crypto assets in many legal jurisdictions. And so we were particularly interested in I think, this fact, particularly when it comes to the 1.1 billion people who don't have government recognized IDs in the world, and then the 1.7 billion people roughly who aren't today served by today's financial infrastructure. And so we were really motivated by building initially a global Venmo-like product that anyone in the world could use. We were very inspired by WhatsApp and this moment in time that WhatsApp basically changed the game for texting, right? I don't know if it's really hard to think back to a time before WhatsApp, but before that time, you couldn't text someone for free anywhere in the world. And then within just a span of a couple of years, suddenly this idea of messaging anybody in your contact list, any phone number in the world, be it through WhatsApp or many other apps that came out later, it just became natural and totally changed the way that we communicate worldwide. And so I think we were likewise really excited for a future where you'll be able to send stable value, much like the way that people in the US use Venmo or Cash App, not just within the US, but to anyone in the world, as easy as sending a text. And clearly that moment hasn't happened yet in the world where you can send crypto to anyone in the world, and with Valora you can send it to any phone number in the world really easily, but it's not yet as universal as WhatsApp. But we're getting closer and closer to this moment, and when it happens, it's going to totally change the world.
Yeah, I think that is the question that I still have very present in my mind is what are the steps that we need to take in order for that global Venmo to occur? Will it ever occur? Does it look sort of this one-stop shop app, or is it a diversity of different applications that will come through? And I think there's sort of arguments and contentions on both sides as far as this singular app that will allow you in the same way that, as you mentioned, the US send money globally, or have this super diverse ecosystem. And seems you obviously went to, let's build out the ecosystem side of things. Let's build out all the like underlying infrastructure that would make something like this possible. And why take that decision instead of saying, in those, I know Ethereum was in much earlier stages of its development, and the EVM as well. And perhaps we didn't see like this clear instance where, okay, we can have, mass transaction settling on the settlement layer. But what was the decision at that point to say we want to work on an entirely new layer one, and go down that route?
Yeah, really great question. And so the origin story, I think, there is that we tried to build Valora first on Ethereum in 2017. It wasn't called Valora back then, but we worked on a kind of global Venmo-like wallet, and we just couldn't make it easy enough to use for it to ultimately satisfy this goal of helping advance financial inclusion. And back then, when we started, this was also before Maker launched, so stablecoins, certainly before USDC launched. Stablecoins were still in their infancy, and so we also were thinking about stability. But ultimately, we chose to build Celo and to launch that platform, not because we necessarily wanted to, but we just felt that we had to create something that would enable developers to build something that was easy enough to use for anyone in the world. And so we worked really hard to make Celo fully, EVM compatible, fully Ethereum compatible. We love Ethereum. We're big fans of the community and think of ourselves as within the Ethereum ecosystem. But we wanted to add a few small changes that would enable folks to build really easy to use mobile applications. So we added the ability to pay for gas with tokens. This was in 2017 when the network launched. Sorry, 2020, I should say, when the network launched, long before account abstraction. We added the ability to send value to phone numbers in a privacy-preserving way. Or I should say, we added the ability to verify your phone number in a privacy-preserving way, and then make it possible for people to send value to your phone number, or in effect, to people in people's contact lists on their phones. And then we also worked really hard to make this work in a decentralized manner on mobile devices. And so we built a ZK Snark based-like client, which was quite a big effort. And only then, once the network launched and the community stood up the network, were we then finally able to launch Valora on top of that and to create an experience that was what we initially imagined and hoped for back when we started tinkering on Ethereum.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that, I've heard you talk about as well the need for that instant finality too, which, having dealt with a lot of real world utility with payments specifically, have been instances or people that is a resistance, right, is perhaps not having that instant finality, and folks are like, I don't know if I really want to trust, like, especially if you're dealing, say, with like something like an ATM. There's nothing to say that you can't call back that transaction at any point and make it therefore invalid. So love the very thoughtful approach to building Celo. And let's walk through the journey, like where we sit here today, 2023, having pondered deeply with regards to that next venture, thinking about the infrastructure that was necessary to make that possible, realizing it wasn't quite there in the ecosystem at the time, building that. Give us what's come out of the Celo ecosystem, like where do things stand today, give the audience a bit of a situation and placement with regards to what has come out of the Celo ecosystem.
Yeah, wonderful question. So, we started working on the platform towards the end of 2017, early 2018. We raised seed round, and then at the bottom of the last bear market, we raised our A round. So, for folks who are working now in this bear market, and I can at least speak from personal experience that there's light at the end of the tunnel, hanging there. But we ultimately raised that round, and we worked really hard to build the platform, and then a community of validators, so not run by C Labs or the Celo Foundation, fully independent folks. Kind of banded together and on Earth Day 2020, very intentionally chosen for that symbolic meaning. The network mined its first block, or validated its first block, And the first EVM compatible proof of stake network, I guess, was launched. So that's now over 3 years ago, and the network has been humming along really, really smoothly ever since. It's only had one production incident in those 3 years, and we're just really, really proud of just how reliable and rock solid that the proof of stake consensus protocol has been. And since then, and I guess really perhaps interestingly, it's a fun fact, a week after the network launched, Celo was launched with full on-chain governance. And so someone proposed the very first kind of governance proposal on Celo, and that proposal was to have the protocol programmatically offset the carbon needed to operate the network. And so, of course, the community got excited to kind of dig into the proposal and ultimately voted in favor of it. And the initial calculations were intentionally very conservative. And so what we found now, looking back, not only did this proposal make the network carbon neutral, it actually made it carbon negative. Which is really cool. And so the protocol programmatically buys carbon offset credits from Project Ren, and now increasingly, as of a recent proposal, from a bunch of on-chain tokenized credits using dexes on Celo, and retires them, and which ultimately makes Celo carbon negative. And so we were the first chain to do that, and I think as a result, a lot of refi protocols have come to Celo. And so now we're seeing kind of a thriving ecosystem of certainly of mobile payments projects and applications and dApps, but increasingly also refi or regenerative finance applications as well. And so that's been really, really great to see. There's a big thriving ecosystem now. We're one of the few chains that Uniswap has deployed onto, so we're really proud about that. Curve is also on Celo, and Chainlink is actively working to deploy on Celo right now, and so we'll likely have a whole bunch more really exciting applications deployed on Celo soon. And so there's a really great ecosystem forming now that is just wonderful to see.
Awesome. So as if being the first EVM compatible proof of stake chain wasn't enough, it also had to be carbon negative. Seems like a good life's work kind of coming through there.
And a lot of folks have copied us ever since, not on the proof of stake front, obviously that was going to happen, but on the carbon negative front. And some people think, oh, like, aren't you annoyed that it's no longer a differentiator for Celo? And the answer is no. We did this because at the time, Ethereum was proof of work. Obviously, Bitcoin was and is proof of work. And the narrative in the overall, both crypto and broader space, was that blockchains are really bad for the environment. And we were particularly excited about what kind of protocols you could build to help fight climate change, and we were pretty certain that in the end, crypto would have a very positive impact on the environment. But we needed to try to change the narrative. We needed to actually show that you can build crypto blockchains in a way that actually can help fight climate change. And so we're glad that the narrative has started to shift, and we're really glad that others have followed suit, because I think ultimately it's for the benefit of the whole planet.
No, absolutely. And I think that's one thing that certainly Celo has always done really well, and is it's positioned itself as a climate positive chain, and naturally has and people positive as well, right? And naturally, I think that has brought together so many regens, or folks who believe in the regenerative finance philosophy, and it feels there's sort of a home that is felt in a very real sense, because it is an entire blockchain that is dedicated to this entire movement. So I think that is incredibly powerful. And what was the thought process as you've seen that? Because not a lot of you've got maybe your Arbitrum, that's your DeFi chain, and Optimism that does put a lot of emphasis on like public goods as well. And so, but as you're thinking about the Celo brand and who you wanted to market this to, like, what was that idea, and how did that emerge as in the earlier stages? But certainly it's like full blown now, like everyone, that is the immediate association that comes with Celo. So I'm curious to kind of hear more of that story.
Yeah, it's a wonderful question. So the term regen didn't exist when we started Celo, but I think had it existed, we would have used it for our go-to-market and in order to grow and cultivate our community early on, because I think, as you pointed out, this is exactly the community that did form around Celo, and it's exactly the kind of, and the things that regions work on is exactly the kinds of problems that people are working on within the Celo ecosystem. But yeah, it took a while. Our mission is to build a financial system that creates the conditions for prosperity for everyone. And our first, mini conference was called Prosper, and it was at that conference. It was pre-pandemic, right before SF Blockchain Week, and a whole bunch of really amazing builders and founders, and what you would now call regions, all came together in a farm in Mendocino, and we had a wonderful, basically an unconference, which laid the foundation for the community that formed after the network launched. And it was there that a project called Impact Market, for example, was incubated. Impact Market is a big UBI protocol on Celo. It's really quite wonderful. If you haven't heard of it, definitely check it out, impactmarket.com. And so much of, I would say, the soul of the Celo community kind of was sparked at that event.
And I've heard a number of folks always reference this event in Mendocino as like a key catalyst for what ultimately has now propagated outwardly as well. So great to see you building that community and nurturing that. And again, it's like I've had the fortune to dip in and out of it as well over the course of the last couple of years too. So great to really experience that and feel that. And I think for many of us, it's like you find your tribe when you connect with folks that are related to the Celo ecosystem. Like I said in the last podcast, it largely just so happened that it was like a bunch of friends just happened to be connected to the Celo ecosystem, and I think that is what a lot of folks experience are as they move through the Celo community as well. So, and then, I know Valora has an interesting story, and you started off as really trying, or the early seedlings were, well, what would a global sort of payments wallet that was built on Ethereum look like? And we dive into a lot of that with the conversation with Jackie. But like, tell us where Valora stands now, and because I really do believe that it will be wallets as this core nucleus of adoption, because everything, like right now, just everything else across the ecosystem is so hard, like far too complex to use. We've had Ambire on this podcast as well, and they do a lot of work with regards to like abstracting away a lot of the complexity. Safe too will be coming on, but I'd love to get your thesis with like why focus a lot of energy now into Valora. I gather that's like a big emphasis of yours, but give us your mind map and thesis there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, so Valora was there from the beginning. As you said, it ultimately we ultimately ended up building it side by side with the Celo platform. And so some of the features that we built, like the ability to pay for gas with tokens, we didn't really know ahead of time that we would need until we started building Valora at the same time. We knew we needed a way to send value to phone numbers really easily, so that was there from the get-go. But the light client, the ability to pay for gas with tokens, all of that came from just building the two products at the same time, taking this kind of full stack approach that we like to compare to kind of Apple's approach to building the hardware and the software at the same time, and creating this really wonderful experience that others can't replicate because they are doing both at the same time. And so that was the approach that we took to Valora. And obviously after the network launch, we were in a position finally to launch Valora. We built it within C Labs initially. And then right around the time that it launched and usage started to take off, we decided to spin it out of C Labs and fundraise for it as an independent company and turn it into the company that it is today. And it's been going, really well ever since. We now have over 1 million installs. Usage keeps growing. We have a lot of our users, not surprisingly, in emerging markets, in Latin America, throughout Africa. Those are pretty big continents for us, and we see people using it, the way that we envisioned. So, if you look at the home screen, the two buttons that are the primary actions on the home screen are send and request. And so even though it's a crypto wallet, it's really tuned towards making it really easy for people to send stable coins. Now Mento stable coins that have launched on the platform, and send them to anyone in your contact list. It's a really easy experience. It feels, as snappy and responsive as a centralized offering, but it's fully self-custodial, built on Celo. And it's just a really, delight, I would say, to use. Along the way, we saw the power of making this be more than just a global Venmo. And so the wallet started working as a signing wallet for Wallet Connect, dApps. Eventually, we brought in a dApp browser into the wallet so that people can use those dApps really easily within Valora. And I think that makes Valora, I think, definitely have a broader functionality than the initial goal. But I think it really complements the initial goal, because what we're seeing is, for example, people building UBI dApps where people can claim their UBI from within Valora. And then we see that money circulating in those communities, much the way that we envisioned initially. Likewise, sometimes DeFi applications are useful for people if they're trying to exchange between, for example, the C Real, which is Mento's Brazilian stablecoin, and CUSD, which is kind of their US dollar pegged stablecoin. It's really easy to do that with all the dexes on Celo. Obviously lending and saving protocols and all of those additional protocols are also seeing a lot of value within the ecosystem, and especially for Valora users. So that's been really cool to see, because it effectively made Valora something that can be extended by any developer out there interested in targeting these kinds of use cases and these kinds of users. And it's just been a joy collaborating with those developers. Going forward, though, I think the biggest challenge, I would say, today is the fact that on and off ramping in every country in the world in a seamless experience within the application is not possible. You can on and off ramp with credit cards in almost every country in the world, but if you want to have a lower fee path that integrates directly into local payment providers, that we hypothesize will take hundreds of on and off ramps all around the world popping up that have local licenses, that have local relationships with on and off with traditional financial institutions. And ultimately that will integrate with Valora. And so we're doing a lot of work actually on something called Fiat Connect, which is designed to make that transition to having a wallet that's integrated with hundreds of on and off ramps possible.
If you haven't yet explored the benefits of smart wallets and account abstraction, you should definitely check out Ambire Wallet. It is the wallet you wish you had when you started your crypto journey. Ambire works with all EVM chains out there, the layer 2s like Arbitrum, Optimism, Polygon, but also non-Ethereum ecosystems like Avalanche and Phantom. You'll never have to spend your valuable ETH again, because Ambire Wallet lets you pay for gas in stablecoins, one of the many perks of smart accounts. The web application of Ambire Wallet offers a number of fiat on-ramps for seamless conversion of fiat currency into crypto. And if you prefer self-custody with a safety net, you can recover a lost Ambire Wallet using an email, address, and password, without giving the Ambire team any control over your funds. Ambire Wallet is available on both mobile and web platforms, providing a range of features including a gas-saving mechanism, effortless integration with multiple dApps, transaction batching, and more cool functionalities to enhance your digital asset management experience. Stay tuned, as an extension of Ambire Wallet is coming soon, TM, to expand its accessibility even further. Want to get your hands on the Ambire Wallet? Check it out at ambire.com. And now, let's get back to the show. Awesome, yeah. So I love, again, just very product-driven approach with starting off with what would a global Venmo need? Okay, there's all this infrastructure that's missing. Cool, we've built that. Now let's think about all the other integrations that exist and sort of developed as well. I mean, DeFi lending and savings protocols didn't exist at the time. And right, and then all of a sudden you're able to see, okay, cool, we can get Uniswap on here, Curve, so on. So great to see that expansion happening simultaneously, and that interoperability standard really embedding itself into the Celo ecosystem. And then the off ramp piece, I think this is like 100% the biggest chokehold right now, and even this whole choke point operation that is often talked about, that is the intention, is let's strand people in or out of crypto. And so I heard you talk about Fiat Connect at Shelling Point at ETH Denver a couple of months ago, but give us like a sense of what's going on there, why you've got a substantial amount of energy going into that project as well, but what's the thesis behind Fiat Connect?
Yeah, so the thesis is really one around interoperability. We really foresee hundreds, maybe even thousands of on and off ramps globally spinning up. I think it's just too difficult given how regulated this industry is, it's just too difficult for any one company to command a huge market share globally of this space. And so that points naturally to many companies forming, and we're seeing this very clearly in a lot of the markets that Valora is growing in and operating in. There's a lot of interest by local entrepreneurs to build on and off ramps that target those markets. And that presents a challenge for Valora, but really any wallet in the crypto space, because if every on and off ramp provider builds a bespoke web-based API that wallets and dApps have to integrate with, then the end result is that every wallet and app out there will have to integrate with hundreds of on and off ramps with all of their bespoke APIs. And that's I like to joke that that's like the worst nightmare for any developer, right? Because it's just all grunt work, it's all maintenance work, it's a pain in the butt. And the end experience for users is also not always that great, because all of these bespoke APIs have their own custom UI experiences that typically they expect folks to embed through a web view into a wallet. And the end result is not that great for end users. And so our solution to this problem is one that is pretty common throughout the software industry, and that's to create a standard similar to Wallet Connect that effectively standardizes the way that wallets and dApps communicate with on and off ramps. And so that standard is Fiat Connect, and you can learn more about it at fiatconnect.org. And very intentionally, we made Fiat Connect a backend API standard, which means that it's a way for wallets and on and off ramps to communicate, but the experience for the end user is still one that the wallet or dApp, if you have a dApp that's integrated with an on and off ramp, it's one where the wallet or dApp offer that and effectively implement that experience. And so wallets and dApps have full control over what that looks like, and as a result, you can make it look native and feel just like connecting your bank account to your Venmo wallet. So one, it makes the experience much easier for end users, but two, it also makes it much easier for wallets to integrate new on and off ramps as they come up, because integrating them effectively becomes just adding a configuration entry in a configuration file to effectively enable this new on and off ramp. And so we're pretty excited about it. It's solving a really critical need, I would say, in the broader crypto space. And if you believe in a future where payments will happen on public blockchains globally, then clearly there's going to be a transition period where people will need to go back and forth between fiat and crypto really easily, and the only way we can achieve that is if we just standardize how that transition looks like from an API perspective. We launched, or I should say, Valora launched the spec last year, and then after that, the Celo Foundation was generous enough to throw some pretty big incentives behind it. There's this really famous XKCD cartoon where in the cartoon, someone is joking about how there's too many ways to do something. Let's add an extra way to do something that will unify everyone. But without creating a Schelling point around that, additional standard, all you've done is just added to the mess, and you've added one more way to actually integrate with whatever you're integrating with in the case of that comic. And so our goal right now is really to build a Schelling point around Fiat Connect to make everyone, adopt it as the standard for connecting wallets and dApps with on and off ramps. And to get there, I think the most important thing is to have a lot of on and off ramps that support it. And so the Celo Foundation effectively created a competition called Connect the World that gives a pretty sizable reward to the first on and off ramp in every market in the world, in every country in the world, to implement Fiat Connect and go live. And that's been working well. There's been, I think, 50 or so companies that have actively started building against it. 12 markets, I believe, are live now, with more coming soon, if not already. I believe 10 of those markets are in Africa, and then also India and the Philippines as well. And there's many, many more markets that are about to go live soon. And so it's really wonderful. In those 12 markets now in Valora, you can, for example, cash out seamlessly either to local money, or financial rails, or to a bank account. It looks and feels fully native. The fees are low because part of the Connect the World prize money goes towards a fee waiver. And so it's a really wonderful experience for people in those markets. And our goal is to bring that effectively to every country in the world.
Safe, previously known as Safe, is a decentralized custody protocol securing $60 billion in assets today. It is establishing a universal standard for secure custody of digital assets, data, and identity. Safe is on a mission to unlock digital ownership for everyone in Web3, including DAOs, enterprise, retail, and institutional users, both through their Safe core account abstraction infrastructure, and of course, its flagship product, the Safe Wallet, the wallet we all know and love. Start using Safe or building on top of the Safe core account abstraction stack by visiting safe.global. And now, let's get back to the show. Amazing. I know Latin America has a few missing gaps out there. If there are any listeners here who are interested in checking out the Connect the World program, definitely do. I think that one, as I mentioned earlier, is off-ramps are a huge challenge logistically, but also a big point of centralization, and a lot of value ends up accruing to these on and off ramps, and can oftentimes restrict the extent to which there is adoption as a consequence of certain policies or whatever restrictions are in place. So I think as seamless of an experience as we can offer folks, I think that will certainly be a huge catalyst for more adoption. And you mentioned all the countries that you're deploying this Fiat Connect. Can't help but notice that a lot of them are in the global south, and obviously a lot of the work that you do is focused on the global south. So as a last kind of point of conversation or theme for this podcast is like exploring that aspect as well. Like, what has it been like working and specifically developing products for the global south? A lot of the folks who are listening are based in Latin America, Africa, Asia. And, when you think about a lot of blockchains, generally focusing on global south users is not always a priority. So, what are the nuances involved in that, or how does Celo think about the relationship that you have with your users as well?
Yeah, really wonderful question. I think it's really absolutely incredible to be building for this audience and to be building products that are delivering real value today. I think crypto gets a bad rap for being, something that doesn't offer any external value to people. That it's all, just money within crypto circulating, and that it's unclear if there's any real world value or use cases being offered. And I think when you're building in this way, I think it's very obvious that you're 100% building for real usage and creating real value to people today. And it's also obvious that crypto in these markets plays this role today, right? I think it's clearly an incredible platform to leapfrog traditional financial infrastructure in markets where that financial infrastructure hasn't yet evolve to kind of what we're used to in kind of North America. Yeah, and then in terms of the kind of the impact, I think we've been just really, really humbled. We were talking about the community and kind of this platform approach to kind of solving some of these challenges. If you read the initial Celo white paper, we definitely talk about this kind of global Venmo use case and sending stable value to phone numbers, and that was the bulk of the text. But we also talked about UBI and social dividend. We talked about community currencies and the impact that they can have. We talked about even nature-backed assets. Long before refi was a thing, we were really excited about this idea that Charles Eisenstein had in a book called Sacred Economics, which he wrote, before Bitcoin even. And it was our dream that we'd be able to deliver on each of these different points, and that's why we talked about them in the white paper. And it's just been so incredible to see the community come together and actually tackle some of these, right? So you have Impact Market now and Good Dollar that have all raised, or that have both raised millions of dollars and dispersed a UBI like reward to over 500,000 kind of beneficiaries around 26 emerging markets. It's just so incredible to see. We've got Mento, which is a stablecoin platform now that has 3 stablecoins. They're soon going to launch a lot more. Their goal is to launch a stablecoin for every currency in the world. And they have ambitions to back some of those stablecoins in part with refi assets. And they're already backing the 3 that are live today with Moss carbon offset credits in part. The Collectivo Gilder has built a community currency that is now starting to circulate in Curacao. That currency is also backed in part by natural capital, and so that's been incredible to see. It's just been so amazing to see all of these different ideas and many other really compelling ones, right? Like Sylvie has a protocol that's planting trees in Kenya and then incentivizing others to verify that those trees were planted correctly. In effect, creating a way to inject capital into these communities. And so now there's these farmer communities in Kenya that are using Valora, and money is circulating within those communities. It's just really cool to see. And so there's a lot of really amazing offerings that are popping up. I'm in some cases I'm really jealous because I have to spend so much time on the core platform itself, and I'm not the only one. Like I think Celo's mission and Celo's focus has attracted a lot of people who care about these use cases, who want to build these use cases. But certainly on the C Labs front, we have to deliver the platform, and so we keep trying to stay one step removed so that we can build what the builders delivering for those use cases are looking to do.
Amazing. I mean, nature-backed assets, UBI, stablecoin in every currency. I mean, it really is, to me, as someone who like just deeply believes in crypto's opportunity to deliver these trustless and permissionless sort of engagements with folks. I think it's super powerful and an important flag that Celo is holding, and stewarding for the rest of the ecosystem, because it is not often that we get to, sort of hear and see where crypto is actually driving change in people's lives. And I know that is a frustration that I personally have. And when we see a lot of other things start to accrue people's mind space, that you think, well, we have so much potential here, and this is where we're dedicating ourselves to. So just like, huge, just in admiration and awe of all the work that the C Labs team and Celo and Valora and all the community continues to build. Because as I started off, to me, it's always really surprising and heartwarming to know that you're dedicating so much energy to really thinking, okay, let's change things. Things don't have to be the way they are. We have the technology in theory to disrupt a lot of these nodes of power, and offer a different way of thinking about nature and our assets and so on. So with that point, like what's the future of Celo? Like, where do you see things heading? What's coming up that people should keep an eye out for as well?
Yeah, really wonderful question. So I think in the Celo ecosystem, I think a lot of people are looking forward to Chainlink launching on Celo. They're actively working on that right now. Chainlink, of course, is kind of the most trusted and biggest oracle in the broader crypto ecosystem, and it will unlock certainly a lot of DeFi applications, but also refi applications. So they're particularly excited about refi use cases, especially as they relate to MRV, measurement, recording, and verification. There's a lot of work in the refi ecosystem that depends on bringing data off chain and having it be on chain. And so I think Chainlink will definitely unlock a lot of really cool use cases. Obviously in the DeFi ecosystem as well, and certainly for mobile DeFi users, I think it will be a big unlock. So that's coming out. They've long committed to doing this, but now they're actively building, which means that they're really close to that launch. So that's, I think, a big one. Another thing I've seen people get really excited about is Kickstarter. So Kickstarter announced that they are building a decentralized version of Kickstarter, and planning to launch that on Celo. I've seen the demo recently, and it's really quite incredible. Really, you have to give Kickstarter credit for the way that they've done this. It's a true Web3 native experience. It's exactly what you would expect from a decentralized Kickstarter, and so I'm super excited about that. I think the impact that a Kickstarter like protocol could have on the world, I think, is just absolutely massive. I think it's going to be orders of magnitude bigger than the incredible impact that Kickstarter has had today already. So that's a really exciting one. Opera is also doing a lot in the Celo ecosystem now. So Opera Mini is a really popular browser in emerging markets. I think they have over 100 million monthly active users. They have a wallet now that supports Celo, and they're, from what I've heard, integrating Fiat Connect. And so I think that will also be really big and exciting for the ecosystem.
Awesome. Yeah, lots of really exciting things coming, both infrastructure level, but also just like application layer as well. So glad to see you kind of onboard that on both ends. So great,
Yeah,
Marek.
and then on the refi front, it might also be worth just mentioning, the Climate Collective just recently received a really big grant from the Celo Community Fund, and they're continuing to kind of steward the kind of refi ecosystem within Celo. And so if you're a refi builder and you're excited about what you've heard and excited about Celo, then I would highly recommend checking out Climate Collective as well. So it's just climatecollective.org. It's an incredibly strong team with a really strong climate background, actually. I think the ecosystem is just really, I think, lucky to have them within the ecosystem.
Amazing. Yeah, definitely go check out all those projects and stay up to date with a lot of the developments. I think that oftentimes, we can all exist in our own little silos of even blockchains, right? And so being able to peer into what's happening in the Celo ecosystem, I think, is certainly something that I would super highly encourage. So just to wrap things up here, Marek, is there anything we haven't touched on with regards to Celo or Valora, or any advice for founders who are trying to navigate that idea space, or anything really free space?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's a really interesting time, I would say, in crypto. I think some people are saying that all of the builders have moved to AI, which, I think, obviously there's a lot of excitement about AI right now. But, if you look at the raw numbers that, folks like Electric Capital put out, there's more full-time devs right now than there were this time last year. And any dip that has happened, around the time of FTX, I think is still relatively small, especially if you look at the trend over the last 4 8 plus years. There's in effect more builders right now in the crypto ecosystem than ever before. And so I'm really excited about its future, and I think more importantly than any of this, at its core, the programmability that crypto has really makes it a social coordination medium like we've never seen before. I like to kind of point to the Constitution DAO. The fact that they raised $47 million in 1 week and try something as audacious as trying to buy a copy of the U.S. Constitution, I think is a really great testament to just the power that crypto offers to take on really big and ambitious things. And so, offering a cheap UBI to anyone in the world, creating protocols that incentivize tree planting, creating stablecoins that are backed by these trees, having people then choose these stablecoins for their day-to-day transactions to help fight climate change. These are really big and ambitious things that sound a lot like science fiction, but they're actually now increasingly possible. And I'm super excited about that. I hope your listeners are super excited. And if they are, I think now is a really great time to enter the space and to build, those science fiction-y like things, because they're gonna happen one way or another. And it's gonna be super impactful. So I'm just excited for what's to come.
Awesome, absolutely, and excited to see what comes out of the Celo ecosystem. Given already, and I mean, you already mentioned these kind of layers of programmability that stack up on top of each other. So, really looking forward to seeing what emerges and what will continue to flourish. So, where can the audience find you and the work you're doing? Any links you want to share with folks?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think first and foremost, celo.org and valora.xyz is where you'll find more information about Celo and Valora. If you're curious to follow me on Twitter, you can find me at just Marek _. I have a very long and difficult to spell last name, and so I'm sparing you all of that effort. You can just replace my last name with an underscore. So just MAREK _. Certainly, if you're on Twitter, check Celo.org and Valora as well out. There's a lot of content that they put out. So definitely a good place to stay informed.
Awesome. Great, Marek. Well, really appreciate you coming on the podcast, and look forward to seeing you around a crypto conference somewhere.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and absolutely looking forward to seeing you and any of your listeners at any upcoming events. I tend to travel to a lot of these conferences, so hopefully I'll see you all there.
Awesome. All right, Marek, have a good one. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Odyssey, and thank you for joining us on our collective journey as we look to explore where crypto has the opportunity to drive real-world impact in the societies of tomorrow. If you haven't yet already, make sure you subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts, and also that you've joined our Telegram community, which you'll find below. I'll see you on the next one.